Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this podcast. This is Chris, the owner of the Lions, and I'm joined by John, the owner of the Cardinals.
What's up, fellas?
So, as I said in the group chat, this is going to be breaking down the offensive power rankings. Um, so, I'll get through kind of the boring stuff, and then we can get into the juicy rankings after that. So, just a disclaimer. What I tried to do was keep it as objective as possible, not opinion based or what people thought that the rankings were. I wanted to keep it as backed up by numbers as I could. Um, Me and John are going to throw in our own comments, so obviously those are going to be opinion based. So don't get your feelings
Opinion
hurt.
based, but also a little factual. There's some
Yes.
facts behind the comments, of course.
Yes, exactly. And then I know there's a lot of things going on in the league right now, like Kenny Dixon just got hurt. I also heard that Jordan Reed is on the PUP. So some of these things I'm not like up to the minute super on the ball on these because I did compile this for a few days. So everything is accurate as of last Friday. Um, and then obviously the websites I use, some of the things might have been changed if you want to verify my work. And then another important distinction is the future draft picks were not factored in at all in the future rankings. I was only able to use what's on your roster right now because obviously it's super hard to predict what's going to happen in the future. So 49ers might be a little bit better if we were factoring in picks, but that's not
Well,
the
that's,
case.
that's good. That's good. It's good that we don't factor in the pick. We don't make the 49ers any better than that. And we
Right.
need to.
And then I'm sure the players that don't have any picks at all can breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, so I'll try to get through this quick. This is kind of the nuts and bolts of it, seeing the wizard behind the curtain. But um, what I did was I broke down each position into 4 tiers instead of getting nitpicky like this guy has the number 10 ranked running back compared to this guy's the number 11 ranked running back. I wanted to break it into tiers, so um, into 4 groups. So the top 25%, the next group of 8, and so on. But it didn't always break up nicely like that. Sometimes maybe there were more high ranked guys or there were more low ranked guys. So I didn't kind of set it in stone and handcuff myself. Um, and then when I was looking at each position, I didn't want to go super far and say, okay, because this guy has, we'll pick on the Cowboys, for example, because the Cowboys have 10 great tight ends, that's not going to supersede someone or I should say, 10 good tight ends, that's not going to supersede someone that has 3 elite tight ends. So I didn't want to go too much into quantity would surpass quality. So I did the top 2 quarterbacks, top 4 running backs, top 6 wide receivers, and top 3 tight ends. And then I broke it down into 2 different styles, win now or future. So win now is actually based on 2017 projections. And I was using Football Guys as the source of that. They take 4 experts' projections. I was able to run our scoring system through it. So even though we have a lot of unique stuff going on, all of that's taken into account. And then what I used was what I suggest everyone use when they do their redraft leagues. It's called value-based drafting or replacement value. Basically, you can compare a player to any other player regardless of position if you find the value of how many more fantasy points they're going to score than the worst starter. So because obviously this is a very unique league with so many flex spots, it's a little bit more of a moving target. If it was just a regular league that had 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, etc., you could actually say, okay, 12-team league, 36 wide receivers. How much better is this guy than the 36th ranked wide receiver? But for this, it had to be a little bit different. So I used some examples here. Quarterbacks are comparing. So the quarterback numbers are going to be a little bit less because we only start one of them. These other positions we could start up to 7. So that's factored in a little bit more. As far as the future ratings, I use Dynasty Fantasy Football Tools. What they do is they take the ADP of startup Dynasty drafts. So they collect all of this data from hundreds and hundreds of drafts, and then they assign a value to it. So the highest ranked player, which I believe on their website is Odell Beckham Jr., he's worth 10,000 points, and then the number 350th player is worth 0. Anyone less than that is also worth 0. So these are how I kind of got the numbers, and then you basically just add up those numbers and you get the score, and I compared them to the other teams. And then I have an overall win now and an overall future. Those aren't going to be star ratings like the positions. Those are actually going to be a number. So I added up the totals and then I ranked them accordingly. This is not an average of the positional rankings. So you might see someone that has a ton of stars, but they're not ranked as high just because maybe someone that had they were weak in a couple other positions, but they were super strong in one position. Because that filled in all of their flex spots, that made them have a better overall lineup. And as I mentioned before, quarterback unfortunately has the least amount of influence because we only start 1, but every other position can start 7. And then the number that we're all waiting for, the overall ranking, that was taking win now and future and putting those together. But I factored in future a little bit more because future actually uses some 2017 numbers. So I didn't want to double count that by kind of splitting it down the middle. So without further ado, thanks for bearing with me on that technical stuff. We'll get to the rankings. So coming in at number 32 is the Packers. So as you can see, how I broke this down was every position I have win now and future. So I'll talk a little bit more about the players once we get to it. Unfortunately, Packers are pretty low in both categories, towards the bottom in win now and rock bottom in future. For the pros and cons, he does have Aaron Rodgers, who is a top quarterback, and he has a very good defense, so that's going to make his overall team much better than 32nd. But he does have by far the worst offense. I'm actually not sure how he's going to fill in all his flex spots. It's kind of weak outside of a handful of players, unfortunately. All right, take it away, John, with you have a segment where you're going to highlight one player from each team to talk a little bit more about
Absolutely. Absolutely. Buddy Ryan's Dapper Dandies. Now, let me clarify this real quick. Dick Vitale had the Diaper Dandies, which were the young up-and-coming players. I don't want to limit myself to just young guys. So I just pretty much picked a player with good upside, good draft value, something like that. Just guys I like on the team for one reason or another. I also picked out the pictures, which is hilarious. Take a look at that dog. So, Packers, Vinny Sandy, he's got Jack Quiz. I like him a lot just because, Muscle Hamster suspended for 3 games. So I think he's going to fill in. If he does well, they might end up in a timeshare sort of thing. So given his draft value, I really like him a lot. Another guy he has on the list on this team was Charles Clay. Very underrated tight end. I like him too. But, we're just doing offense. So Vinny Sandy's got decent defense, but just doing offense, it's poor. It's down there. So number 32.
All right. Number 31 is the Colts. So looks like they're a little bit balanced, but they're still towards the bottom. What hurts them there is ranked second to last for future value. So the pros were they have pretty good quarterback depth. They have Derek Carr and Andy Dalton, so that's pretty good. They have good running back depth too. A couple players that can start for them, Coleman and Latavius Murray. But they have poor wide receiver depth, and they really lack star players. So if you see the notable players, none of them are really going to put the team on their back. Or they're not going to put the team on their back, I should say. So Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that team. His name's Bo. All right. So we have the Colts. The guy who wins the Colts is Bo. I've been in the league with Bo for 10 years, and we call him the Maverick. He's the wild card. You absolutely never know what this guy's going to do. He could be, in the first round, he'll draft Deshaun Jackson just because he's a guy he likes. I mean, he really doesn't care whatsoever about stats or future projections. It's just guys he likes, and he's going to take them when he wants to take them. And, yeah, it's just the way it is. So Deshaun Watson, I think with the quarterbacks he already has, I like the fact that he picked up Watson. Watson's actually got a chance to start day one. You never know with Houston, but I like him. He's got good. But I think he's a good guy to have. I think Bo did a good pick.
All right. So number 30 is the Patriots. Much different than in real life. So as you can see, quarterback is pretty decent there. He is balanced as well. Unfortunately, he's the worst win now team. Some of the pros, Mike Evans is a top player, so obviously he's bringing up the rankings there. And just in general, he has really solid future wide receiver depth. We're looking at Devontae Parker, Allen Hurns, Juju, a couple other players there, so that's good. Unfortunately, he has poor running back depth. Maybe not even really any true starters with Hunt and Perrine as his guys, and then poor tight ends. Not really any starter quality guys there, unfortunately.
The cheaties, I love that. I know you hate the Patriots, but I think that's hysterical.
I do hate the
Allen
Patriots.
Allen Hurns, a great receiver, good pickup. Had a down year last year, but 2015 he was lights out. So, I mean, all signs point to him having a good year this year. So, I really like that pickup.
I think it definitely depends a lot on Blake Bortles for sure.
Yeah, it's everything in Jacksonville's up in the air. You never know what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, number 29 is the Cowboys.
Shanghai.
So, as you can see, as all of you have seen on his roster, obviously the guy's loaded at tight end. Maybe he knows something we don't know. Obviously, there's the 1.5 points per PPR, so maybe that's going to give him an advantage at some point. He has the most startable tight ends. Might not have the most top-end tight ends, but for sure, regardless of injury, he's going to have someone to use. He's probably filling his entire flex roster with that. And he does have good quarterback depth. He's got Big Ben. He's got Matt Stafford, Tyrod Taylor. So those are good. He has
solid good.
Yep. He has aging or unproven running backs. So, some of his guys are Lacey, Powell, Blunt, and then he has a bunch of rookies. So we don't know what's going to happen with them.
There you go. LeGarrette Blunt, the guy you were just talking about. Now, I love Blunt. I think him being in Philly, he's just going to be a goal line beast. But, I'm from Philly. I live in Philly. I love the Eagles, so maybe that's just my fanboy. But he's a 250-pound pig. He's an absolute load. And the Cowboys took him in the 14th round. The guy had 18 TDs last year. He's a hog. So I love that pick. I think he's probably going to anchor his running back core. I don't know about Fatty Lacey, but I think Blunt was a good pickup.
And I think it's good because, as an Eagles fan, they don't really have someone that suits that short yardage role. They have a lot of
nobody has a guy. Even the receivers haven't panned out as being the guy for the red zone targets. There's a lot of hope for Alshon Jeffrey, obviously, but I think once the guy is proven, you need 1 yard, he'll get you 1 yard.
Right.
He's the guy to put in.
Yep. Okay, number 28 is the Vikings. So he did improve his team quite a bit in the draft. He has a lot of promising rookies, and it's headlined by Jordy Nelson, is his best veteran, his best player. So he does have a lot of young, high potential running backs and wide receivers that he got in the draft. He's got Fournette, McCaffrey. He has Hunt too, OJ Howard, a couple other guys there. But like I said, all of these guys are unproven. So, they're not all going to hit. Some of them might struggle. Some of them might be buried on the depth chart. You never know. And then for his quarterbacks, he doesn't really have too much as far as people that are going to start right away. He does have Carson Palmer. Maybe Watson wins the starting job early.
And there you go. There's Patrick Mahomes right there. You're talking about quarterbacks. There's one thing I know about having Andy Reid being the coach of the Eagles for about 15 years or 12 years, however long he was in there, is if he likes a quarterback, like he loved McNabb, and if he likes a quarterback, he will force that quarterback to have good stats no matter what. And McNabb always did. Always had a lot of yards, always had a lot of touchdowns. And, Andy Reid, he said he thinks Mahomes is the next Brett Favre. So I guarantee you Andy Reid is going to force Mahomes to do well, at least from like a fantasy stat projection.
And anything is an improvement over Alex Smith. So
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Okay, number 27 is the 49ers. Like I said, future picks doesn't affect this. You might have been a little higher if that was the case. So the win now is what mostly hurts because there's a lot of young players on the team. So he's leaning more towards future, obviously. He has good running back depth. Obviously, he traded for Joe Mixon, which I think he won that trade a lot. And he also got Sanders in that trade as well. The wide receivers are pretty good too. The three that are listed there. He also has a couple other pretty good young running backs. Unfortunately, Dixon got hurt, but he also has Precise. But he has poor quarterbacks, Goff and Lynch. I don't know what they're going to do this year. Poor tight ends. I don't know if he has any starters there. I'll go here. So you'll have to explain that one, John.
It's Pat. I love that. Anybody who lived around, or, was of age during the 90s, watched Saturday Night Live, remembers it's Pat. He's that creepy kind of, like talks like that. You remember that? That guy. It's something about the 49ers. He's talking about people in their underwear. He's saying, "Hey, give me your girlfriend's email address. Let me write them a love." Just weird stuff, man. Talking about owning Marshall and Lynch or crazy stuff like that. The guy's questionable, so I love that picture. But I also love Martavius Bryant. I think he's a good receiver. His suspension's over. I think he's got a good opportunity to be the guy right below the top guy, which is Antonio. And I think Bryant's the guy to fill in there. And I think he's got a great opportunity where he is. I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, depth chart's wide open behind Antonio Brown too.
It's Antonio and everybody else, but it looks like Martavius Bryant is going to be everybody else.
Right. Number 26 is the Chiefs. So as you can see, quarterback and wide receiver don't look good. Running back and tight end do look good. Of course, he has David Johnson, who's a top player. That is what anchors his team. That's what's bumping up his win now number. So he's leaning more towards win now. And he does
David Johnson increases the team.
Yes,
Definitely
certainly.
increases the star ratings. I know that firsthand.
Yep. We'll get to yours. um, and he has a couple tight ends that'll probably start for him. Ertz, Brait. But he does have poor quarterbacks. They're not that good. Tannehill and Lynch. I know you're going to talk about Tannehill though. And then his wide receivers. I mean, I like Doxson a lot, but he really doesn't have a lot of guys behind that.
Boom, Doug Martin. I still can't decide what I want to order. I love Andy Reid. There was like, when he was the coach of the Eagles, that's like 90% of the stuff was making fun of him, talking about how fat he is. And he came to Philly and he was just eating cheesesteaks left and right, put on like 50, 60, 70 pounds, driving around his little Model A, little tiny car, big Andy Reid driving around. Love it. Love it. But Doug Martin, one of the best nicknames in the business. He's a great back. The problem is spending the first 3 games, quick opportunity to shine, and you never know what's going to happen with that. But if you Doug Martin's the guy, he's going to carry him the rest of the way. A lot of potential there. A lot of potential. I also noted that he has David Johnson and C.J. Anderson on, so he's stealing my running back crew. I don't know if I like that.
Okay, number 25 is the Browns. Just like real life. Actually, the Browns might be lower. So looks pretty balanced. Not the greatest for win now or future, but he does have Le'Veon Bell. Much like the Chiefs, that one player is bumping him up quite a bit.
So if only something he could get to. That's the only thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Star players.
Yeah, if he had Bell and David Johnson, right. So he has a very young team, which is good and bad. Obviously, in Dynasty, you want to keep guys for a long time. So these guys are going to be playing for a while, but they are unproven. Not all of them are rookies. Some of them are maybe second, third year players that they had flashes or we're still waiting on them to fully hit their potential. Obviously, some of the guys that are on his notables, Moncrief and Hill, not 100% sold on them, but I know some other people are. And then his tight ends are a little bit weak as well.
The bags. And Dan. I'm in another league with Dan, and I swear he just drafted Jameis Winston. I'm not sure if it was a joke or not, but that was the guy he picked in the rookie draft. So this just happened like a half hour ago. You never know what this guy's going to do. He's another wild card. But love Carson Wentz. I mean, he's the guy. I mean, Doug Johnson is Andy Reid's protege. You got to think, given how many times Wentz threw the ball last year, that he's just going to do the Andy Reid thing and make his guy, make his stats relevant. And it seems like Doug Johnson's going to do the same thing with Wentz. Wentz got, he got Alshon Jeffries, he's got Blunt to take a little bit of the pressure off. Jordan Matthews, you never know what he's going to do. I think Wentz is a great pick. The problem is Dan took him at 213. And that was really early. I took him at 916. I think he's great at 916. 213 might be a little early, but you want the guy. And I think Wentz is a star. I think he's a future star.
Yeah, I think looking at the draft, he was probably picked in the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks, right?
No, he was picked late. He hung around until almost the 10th round.
Oh no, sorry, I meant in the AFC. Yeah, when
wow. AFC is the Wild West. I don't know what the hell happened over there.
That's true. We'll leave that to them to figure out.
Figure that out. But I like Wentz. He's a good player.
Okay, so number 24 is the Panthers. So, I mean, according to their positions, they look pretty balanced. But like I said, it might be players that are at the top of the depth chart, and then it might be a case where filling out the rest of the flex spots, that might be where their rankings are a little bit lower. So he is great for win now, but his future is a little bit lower. I think that's mostly because of the age of some of his players, possibly. So he has great tight ends, Kelsey and Martellus Bennett. Those are going to do great for him this year. And he has great wide receivers for 2017. So some of those old players I was mentioning, he's got Edelman, Deshaun Jackson, Brandon Marshall. They're going to be great this year, but I mean, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, we don't know. Doesn't have a lot behind Jay Ajayi, but I mean, Jay Ajayi is really good, so he's got a good start there.
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Yeah, you caught me. I'm making a cup of Joe.
Oh.
It's 10 o'clock when we're recording this. Nobody wants me falling asleep during the podcast. So.
Oh, do what you got to do,
Mike,
man.
Yeah, Mike Gillisley. I mean, he showed when he fills in, he can do well. I mean, he can be that guy, and it's extremely possible he's the top dog in New England, and New England's New England. I mean, what are they going to go 16-0 this year? You never know. So I think Gillisley's a good pick. I really like him a lot.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit more well-rounded than Blunt, but I think he'll be the one that's probably getting the shorter yardage touchdowns because everyone else is a pass catcher.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the short yardage guy, and that's a valuable thing to have, as we saw from Blunt last year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I traded Gillisley to the Panthers, so I hope I don't regret that.
I hope you got something good. By the way, what do you want for Ben Watson?
We'll talk about that later.
Let's make it straight. Let's make it happen.
Maybe we'll pause and then we'll go to the website and figure something out.
Yeah, let's keep recording. Let's keep it going. Let's keep the pressure on.
All right. So
I think I need a little bit of extra behind Henry, and you want to get. What did you pick him up off free agent wire? Come on, send him over here. I'll give you value for him.
All right, yeah. Send me an offer, and I'll look on my phone. All right.
Okay.
So number 23 is the Rams. So they're looking a little bit on the lower end for some of those. Pretty balanced though, kind of middle of the road team. But they do have two elite wide receivers, Mike Evans and Michael Thomas. I don't see why both of those.
It's a great combination right there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't see how both of those don't end up top 10 easily. Pretty solid tight end depth as well. Let me look here. Yeah, so he has Doyle, Fedorowicz. Those are pretty good guys to have there. But he has, as you can see with the stars too, average in some areas. So he kind of has some average running back and wide receiver depth behind those guys. So Mike Evans and Thomas really bumped up his score on those.
Yeah, so Vernon Davis, man, you can't. I mean, you know what he is. He's an old tight end, but you know exactly what he can do. He's like almost the definition of a one-trick pony. He's the street guy, you know what I mean? But guys, I mean, he drafted him at 59.3. I mean, you get a solid tight end, 59.3 in a 66-round draft. You can't beat that. I think Vernon Davis is a great pickup.
And I mean, they need to replace a lot of players that left. Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson were both got a lot of targets. Like I said, I just got breaking news. Jordan Reed is on the PUP, so I mean, Vernon Davis might have to fill in sooner rather than later. Okay, number 22, the Seahawks. So another kind of middle-of-the-road team, pretty balanced for win now and future. A very young team. Picked up Corey Davis right at the top of the rookie draft. But he does have some solid running back depth. Miller, Ingram, Doug Martin. But his wide receivers are unproven. He does have Corey Davis, like I mentioned, but then he also has Tyreek Hill, Crowder, Perryman, who we're still waiting on finally breaking out. So still up in the air on some of those. And then his running backs might lose their starting jobs. Miller, Ingram, Doug Martin is obviously suspended to start the season, so we don't know what the depth chart situation for the Seahawks is going to be.
So David Njoku is he's a great tight end. I really like that guy a lot. He's in Cleveland. So you never know what's going to happen in Cleveland. It's like it's insanity over there. It's like half of a football team, half of like a junior varsity team. You never really know. But he's a great tight end. He's got skill set. And he's in a solid position to start. So, I mean, if he's the starter, I think that's a great pickup. I think he's a good guy to have on the team.
All right. So number 21 is the Buccaneers. So, Buccaneers actually just traded Rob Gronkowski. He did get Khalil Mack, so if we were doing a defensive power rankings, his defense improved, but losing Gronk is going to hurt him in this ranking.
Yeah, Gronk's a superstar, no doubt. And anytime you lose Gronk, that's losing the centerpiece of an offense.
Yeah,
but he gained the centerpiece of the defense, so kind of evens out, but not for these rankings.
Yeah. Can't pick on him too much because he did get a good player out of that. So he has two elite running backs, Melvin Gordon and Jordan Howard. I think those were his first two picks. Jameis Winston's pretty good too. And the problem is trading away Gronk. Now he has kind of a dicey tight end situation. I guess he might start his backup, Dwayne Allen, or he might do Clive Walford, who's also not a starter, backup on the Raiders.
Those are good guys. Those aren't guys you want to rely upon, though.
Yeah. And not to pick on you too much, but this actually, trading Gronk, I think, dropped him 7 or 8 spots in these rankings.
It dropped him a little, but I'm not exactly sure what his linebacker situation is, but guarantee having Khalil Mack boosted him up a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
But Doug Baldwin, he drafted Baldwin at it was 4.9. Doug Baldwin is he's like PPR gold. He's like that's exactly what he is. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a top 5 receiver this year, top 7. I mean, he's been top 7 the last 3 years in our scoring system. So drafting a guy who's continuously proven to be top 7, drafting him almost the 5th round. I mean, at the end of the 4th round, that's great value. I think Baldwin is he's a nice little centerpiece to have on his offense.
Yeah, a lot of touchdowns too, and I think Russell Wilson's definitely going to bounce back from last season.
Yeah.
So number 20 is the Raiders.
The commish.
Yes. So as you can see, he's much more leaning towards future, and that's all on the power of his wide receivers. He's got one of the top wide receiver groups. It goes really deep too. He's got Hopkins, Allen, Cooks, Sanders, and then not even listed is Macklin. He picked up a couple good rookies. Maybe he's hoping for Treadwell to turn it around. So he's just really deep at that position. Unfortunately, he probably has the worst running back situation. I guess DeAndre Washington is probably going to be a starter. Maybe Jeremy McNichols, the rookie on the Buccaneers. And then his tight ends, he's got a tough situation there as well.
That's the price you got to pay. When he went receivers real high. You go receivers high, you're going to have running backs. You got to have, you can't. Yeah, he's got a lot of good players in the receiver position, and that's it's PPR league, it's PPR scoring system. So
and it boosted up his overall future. Obviously, filling all of those flex spots.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Vernon Davis. I mean, I just talked about Vernon Davis a little while ago. He's a solid tight end. You know exactly what he's going to do. I think. Let's see. The Raiders took him at 55.01. I mean, 55.01 is where you're drafting, the flat, the chaff. He's getting a solid tight end, 55.01, even though he's old. Still got the Jerry Reed situation going on. So it's like, I think Vernon Davis is a good pickup. Absolutely.
All right, number 19 is the Bills. So as you can see, the win now stars are looking pretty good. He's actually ranked 10th for win now, but like I said, the future ranking takes a little bit more precedence over the win now, so that's what bumped him down a bit, but he's definitely going to be good this year. He has a great pair of quarterbacks. Not only does he have Aaron Rodgers, but he has Dak Prescott too. And then Melvin Gordon is one of the top running backs, so he'll have him for a while. He's got poor tight ends, unfortunately. I guess Charles Clay would be his starter there. And then his wide receivers are, the depth is average. He has a couple good ones, Doug Baldwin, Pierre Garçon. Those are going to help certainly this year.
Boom, Kevin White. I came in like a wrestling ball. So there was it was questionable whether I was going to give you that picture or the picture. Buddy Ryan's got like this crazy foot for not Buddy Ryan. Rex Ryan's got this crazy foot fetish. So this was one picture where he's like surrounded by feet. Kind of creeped me out. Decided not to put that picture up there.
I'm glad
Plus
you picked
it's a little, it's a little dated anyway, but all in good fun. But Kevin White, good receiver, former first round pick. He was hurt last year, but all signs point to him starting this year. And I think I think the future's bright for him. I think he's got a good situation there. I just wish quarterback situation is questionable, but everything else is good. I think getting a starting wide receiver that late is pretty good.
Okay, number 18 is the Jets, another team that Rex Ryan coached. So, as you can see, he is not looking good for win now, but he is looking great for future. So, this is one of the most, unbalanced between win now and future. He totally sold out going future. I think he didn't pick a real player until, I don't know, off the top of my head, I don't think he picked a real player until the high teens.
Yeah, it was late. It was very, I don't understand why these guys, the 49ers did it too. I guess I just don't understand the philosophy. It's like, okay, you're picking future guys, and I know in 5 years we have the big pot, but it's like, what, you're going to give me your money for 5 years? You're just going to lose, and then who knows if those guys are going to pan out? In 5 years from now, you don't know. So I just think it's a crazy way to draft your team. You can have a nice balance between win now and win later, but I don't understand how these guys did it. But
must have a gambler's mentality, because I'm a little too timid in order to do such a risk like that. But I have to give him credit for going for it.
He's from Australia, so he's thinking Australian rules football, and here we call that rugby. This is American football. This isn't rugby. That's the difference.
So, like we've been talking about, if this rookie class hits, he might have the best team, but you never know if it'll hit. He doesn't have any any veterans to give him that reliable, consistent floor. Even though all of these guys have a really high ceiling.
Very high ceiling.
Right. And I mean, some of these guys, like the notable players that I mentioned there, all of them are day one starters for sure. But you don't know some of the other guys. Obviously, you need to fill out a 56 player team, so you don't know if all of those are going to be good rookies or if he's going to have to figure something out a couple years from now. And then I'd like this team a lot better if he made sure he got a veteran quarterback, and then he could have taken the risks on everything else, but not sure what he's going to do there. Those are all rookies too, but maybe someone will start sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's a big difference between win now 31, win future number 8. That's a big disparity. And by the way, I love this picture. The Jets playoff schedule. I think that's been the Jets playoff schedule for, except for when Rex Ryan coached them, for maybe 2 years when they were fighting for a playoff spot. They were making it into early rounds. That's been their playoff schedule since Johnny Unitas. I think it's just, I think that's hilarious. But he's got Mahomes, and you said, he doesn't have a veteran quarterback, but everything I hear about Mahomes is positive. I think he's a good building block for the future. I think if Andy Reid does what Andy Reid does, which is force his guys to be in plays and throw the ball repeatedly, like he did with Donovan, does the same thing with Mahomes, that's a good guy to have. I like the pick.
All right, and then we're going the polar opposite here, number 17, the Titans.
Tommy.
So, it's very fitting that they're back-to-back here. Absolute, total opposite philosophy, total opposite roster, how it's comprised. Number 1 for win now. I wouldn't be surprised if he won this year. He is absolutely stacked for players that are going to be good in 2017. So best win now team by far. It wasn't even really close. He has the highest ranked win now quarterbacks and running backs. John, I know you have good running backs, but he's got like 5 or 6 deep on this. All of them are good.
The difference is I have running backs. My starting 3 guys, my starting 4 guys, they're all 25 years old. That's the big difference.
Correct.
I mean, Tommy is the guy who owns Titans. He is. It's ridiculously old. Like I can see possibly doing the future thing. It's not my thing, but I guess I can understand it from a certain point of view. But this is like, 2 years from now, this team doesn't exist.
Right.
Half the team's retired. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, and it might even be next year. A lot of these guys retiring: Marshawn Lynch, Frank Gore. As they mentioned in the podcast earlier, a couple months ago, Brady, Breeze, Big Ben, all of them could retire next year. Their average age is like 38 there, so
they're running really old.
Yeah, got a lot of good players, but especially at quarterback, can't start them all. So.
The knitting circle, and that's the perfect description of Tommy's team. It's like it's so ridiculously old. It's like you can't even. This is a one and done draft. This isn't like a dynasty draft, which is what the league is. I just don't understand. I actually have written down here. I wrote down like jokes just about Tommy's team, and as I was writing down the Dapper Dandies, I started writing down jokes about his team, like Tom's team doesn't put stickum on their hands. They use polygrip. Tom's team offered me some hard candy yesterday. And Tom's team told me to get off his lawn. You know what I mean?
Instead of Gatorade, they drink Ensure.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you got some Centrum Silver or something. It's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy how old the team is. I can't stress it enough how old it is and how bizarre of a draft strategy it is in a dynasty league. But he does have good players, and we'll see if he wins now. I mean, he's definitely in it for this year, that's for sure.
And if he wins if he wins this year, he plays for free for however many years it takes him to rebuild.
It's many years. How long did it take Cleveland to rebuild after the Ravens left?
Right.
And they're still rebuilding. I mean, you never know. It could be 10 more years. It could be 20. I don't know. But he's got Ted Ginn Jr. I like him. Good receiver. He's always the ancient one. Just like everybody else on his team is like breaking a hip when they get out of bed. But I like Ted Ginn. He's in New Orleans. He's got Drew Brees throwing him the ball. He's doing. I think he's doing either kick returns or punt returns. So that's more positives. But Tommy, what did you do? What did you do? What are you thinking? I don't understand it. But jeez.
All right, number 16 is, we're getting in the top half of the league here. Number 16 is the Giants. Pretty balanced. Still kind of middle of the road team. Andrew Luck is a top quarterback, so that's going to help him. He
loves Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
So he was real happy to.
He's got great running back depth here. Gurley, Crowell, Hyde, Perkins. That very solid. He's got below average wide receivers, below average tight ends. Pryor, Shepard, and Doxson kind of lead his wide receivers, so we don't know how they're going to do.
It's a horrible picture.
It's his dad bod.
That's terrible. He's even got the little bucket. Like, come on, man. It's like ridiculous. But Kopech he has my philosophy. You get the big bowling ball at running back. You get the bell cow. You get the guy who's really going to be the go-to guy in the short yard situations. And he's got Jonathan Williams, and Jonathan Williams is a load. I mean, he's like 225 running back, 225 pounds. He's McCoy is old, and he's got some wear and tear. I mean, we used him a lot when he was with the Eagles, and they've been using him a ton up there. So I mean, I think Jonathan Williams is one twisted ankle away from being a starter. And McCoy just, he's quick, he's light, he's making different cuts. One little injury, Williams steps in, and he's a bowling ball, and he's going to be the guy, probably be a top 15 back. So, you got to cross your fingers on that one. Then McCoy goes down, but if he does, Williams is a stud.
Well, I think even they could be able to support two successful running backs. They did last year with McCoy and Gillislee, so definitely has potential.
It's possible, but McCoy is not that bad in the short yardage situations. That's the thing. Right. And plus, he has the secondary effect of being able to catch the ball. So it's like, I mean, they could possibly do that. He could do the Gillislee role, but I think if McCoy goes down, I think Jonathan Williams is going to shine.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, number 15 is the Broncos. So another balanced team, getting a little bit higher instead of middle of the road here. Obviously, the two guys here that are real superstars are Odell Beckham Jr. and Rob Gronkowski. He's got other pretty good tight ends. Martellus Bennett, obviously, that's going to help a lot too. And now that Bennett's on the Packers, it's not both players on the same team, so that helps with more starters there. Unfortunately, he has poor quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers will do enough for him this year, but we'll see what happens there. And then behind Odell Beckham, his wide receivers aren't great. Deshaun Jackson, Rashard Matthews, they'll be all right.
Yeah, so the Broncos is He's one of those guys. I've offered him trades before. He's never even like responded to those trades, even with like, even declining it. It's just they expire after a while. He's the only guy who's actually not on GroupMe, I think. So we can pretty much say anything we want about the guy, and I don't think we'll ever find out. I'll probably never even see this video. But I do like Isaiah Crowell. He's a really underrated, but very reliable running back. And Cleveland needs all the help they can get. So I think Crowell's a good pick. I'd like to have him on my team. So if I offer you a trade for Crowell, accept it. Don't just let it pass and ignore it.
And I think Crowell probably had the best improvement in his offensive line of any player. They had 2 superstar signings.
That's going to make a big difference, and I think he's a good, steady, reliable running back. He's a great running back to have.
Mm-hmm. Number 14 is the Redskins. So he is a little bit more leaning towards the future. He's got a lot of good wide receivers. One of the top-rated groups of wide receivers. Those guys I listed on the side, notable players, Cooper, T.Y. Hilton, Landry, all of them have high ceilings but pretty safe floors as well. And he has a ton of quarterbacks. I mean, the guys up top are pretty good. He has a ton of quarterbacks. I'm not going to say he has the best because that's certainly quantity over quality. But he has a couple.
He did one of those corner the market things. He was just trying to corner the market on quarterbacks. And he's got a ton. He's doing what the Cowboys did with tight ends, where it's just like just acquire all of them and hope to make a trade later down the road to fill out the team.
Right. And then he's got some poor running backs. Perrin and Thomas Rawls are really all that he's got there. Average tight ends, Cook and Brait. They'll probably be okay, but still average.
He's got Tannehill. Tannehill's one of the guys I like. I mean, he's not an elite quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but he was taken in the later rounds, and he's proven over the past couple of years that he can put up some stats. And I don't think that's going to stop. I think he's going to have decent fantasy production. But he's not an elite guy by any stretch of the imagination. But I like him a lot. I'd like to have him on my team.
And I think another year in Adam Gase offense is going to help too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number 13 is the Ravens. So as you can see, pretty well-rounded team. Probably has the most balance of any team. All of his positions are pretty good. And then he has a couple top players in there with Green, Freeman, Crabtree, Eifert. He's leaning a little bit more towards win now, just because obviously that's higher than the future, but they're still both pretty decent. Some of his players are, so as I mentioned with those, his wide receivers go a little bit deeper too. Randall Cobb, Kenny Britt, those are pretty good.
Yeah, so O'Connor's got Sproles. I mean, I love Darren Sproles. He's one of those guys he's going to play for forever. He's just never going to retire. I mean, he's old, but he's got velvet gloves. I mean, this guy can catch anything at any time. He does punt returns, does kick returns. He's the whole package. You can pretty much do anything you want him to do on the field from a special team standpoint. I love him. I think he's fantastic, and he's as tall as the mailbox. You can't beat that. I mean, that's an actual stat. He's actually as tall as the mailbox. That's fantastic. But that's one of the reasons they drafted Humphreys. I'm thinking Humphreys going to take over that position once Sproles retires. But for this year, I think Sproles is going to put up some good numbers, especially in our league because running backs get the full point PPR, and that's for a guy who catches 50, 60 passes a year, I mean, you can't beat it. I think it's a great pickup in the late rounds.
All right, number 12 is the Bears, our other commissioner.
The other commish.
So he is certainly leaning more towards the future. Again, very similar makeup as our other commissioner. Great wide receivers, one of the top wide receiver groups there. His notable players, all four of those guys, obviously. He's got Willie Snead, Jeremy Maclin, just really deep there. He'll probably fill all of his flex spots with wide receivers. Certainly because his running backs are a little bit weaker. Matt Forte and Darren Sproles will probably be good enough since we only have to start one running back, but both of them might be retired next year, so he might not have any running backs to use at all. Poor quarterback depth just because he doesn't have a backup. Marcus Mariota is pretty good, but needs someone behind him.
Yeah, I love Mariota. I think he definitely should have backed up his running backs a little more. I think Sproles, he's old, he's a little quick guy. One twist of the ankle, he's always on the injury report, so that's not a guy you want to rely upon. But Alshon Jeffrey, I mean that's one of his receivers he got. I think Jeffrey's due for a huge year. I think he's going to be fantastic. He's going to be Wentz's number one target, possibly the red zone guy. And if he does anything like he did in Chicago, I think he's going to be lights out. Definitely top 10 receiver. I think it's fantastic. That's not just a Philly fanboy in me. I think he's genuinely a good wide receiver. Wentz is genuinely a good quarterback, and I think I think he's going to get the rock several times a game. I think he's always going to be looking in his direction first. So I think that's a good pickup.
I'm glad you prefaced not the Eagles fanboy because you have done like 6 Eagles, but I agree with what you're saying.
Well, I live in Philly, but come on, the things I'm saying you can't really refute. You know what I mean?
No, I get
you. Yeah, I do. It's Philly first for me. That's just how it is.
No, yeah, I mean, I would defend Derek Carr to the death, so I'm with you on that. Okay, so the Chargers. They are leaning much more towards future. Another kind of imbalance similar to the Jets here. Let's see what they got. So they have great wide receivers. Allen Robinson, Michael Thomas. That's a great duo right there. Got a couple other really high potential young guys. Corey Coleman, Anunwa, Tyrell Williams. So I really like his wide receivers there. He's got young, high potential running backs. Most of them are rookies or second-year guys. That's why I didn't mention before. Well, I typed it out in the disclaimer. The stats that I used for 2007 projections were a little bit conservative for the rookies. So although they have high potential, they were kind of going with conservative numbers, so that's why the win now might not be as high for these teams that have a lot of rookies. But yeah, so his running backs, he's got Fournette, Derrick Henry. I like Joe Williams a lot. And then he's got average tight ends, but they should be good enough to fill the position.
Last place, lame, lazy. That's just messed up.
It's such a bad. I mean, I'm biased because I like the Raiders and I hate the Chargers, but this logo,
it's just a bad symbol.
It's just terrible, and it looks so much like the LA Dodgers too. They made no effort.
It really does. It's like they didn't put much effort into it. I don't understand what they're doing over there. But Quincy Anunwa, someone has to catch passes for the Jets. Someone has to. I mean, they're not going to go. They're going to throw the ball, and eventually people are going to catch the ball. Why not Quincy Anunwa? Maybe not. Someone's got to catch them. You don't know.
All right, number 10, breaking into the top 10, the Dolphins. So obviously here they're win now, but they're both pretty close to the middle. Win now is a little bit higher. Ezekiel Elliott is bumping up those numbers for sure. He's one of the top rated running backs, one of the top rated players in Dynasty, obviously.
Yeah, he's a load, but he's going to get suspended from everything I hear. I'm not sure how long that suspension is going to be, but all signs point to a suspension coming down for him, which is good for me. Keep him out as long as you can so the Eagles will win a couple games.
Yeah. So, I mean, some solid depth behind him, too. Lamar Miller, Bill Powell is probably going to do some decent stuff for the Jets this year. His wide receivers are either old or unproven. He's got older guys like Jordy Nelson and Brandon Marshall, and then an unproven guy in Meredith. He showed some flashes last year. And then a lot is riding on the Packers wide receivers. His top two guys are Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. I mean, that can be a good thing. That can be a bad thing.
The problem is they sometimes the Packers start slow. And when they start slow like they did, before, you never know what you're going to get. But it's always going to be a good offense. As long as Aaron Rodgers is there, it's going to be a top tier offense. So I mean, if you're going to put, if you're going to put all your eggs into one team's basket, it's not going to be the Patriots. Why not the Packers?
Right. Yeah. It's a good problem to have.
So Cameron Meredith, he's a starting receiver for the Bears. He's starting left. So I mean, between him and White, I think they're going to have to catch balls. They're talented receivers. This guy's young. He's got all the talent in the world. They just got to figure out the whoever's throwing him the ball situation. That's the problem.
Right. Number 9 is the Saints. So, I mean, they're leaning towards win now. As you can see, with they don't really have any weaknesses in the win now department. Great overall balance for win now. Pretty good depth at wide receiver. Des Bryant, Sammy Watkins, Rashard Matthews, Kenny Britt, Fitzgerald, Meredith. Just really solid. A lot of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 guys there. The cons, it's not too much of a con, but he only has 1 or 2 really big stars at each position. I mean, he's got the depth, but that's going to be tough when he's playing someone like the Titans, obviously, with just stacked across the starting lineup. And then a lot is riding on the Falcons running backs, Freeman and Coleman. That might hurt.
That's a good problem.
Another good problem to have, yeah. But I mean,
there was enough last year to be passed around to both of those guys. So,
right. I guess another thing to keep in mind too is shared bye weeks, or maybe they play like just a shutdown defense.
Mm-hmm. Just made $1,000. The flop. So Carney is like a deer in the headlights. I've tried these. I'm in another league with him, and I've tried to make trades in this league. He's one of those guys where you can no sudden movements, or he's backing out of that trade. He's that kind of guy. That's just who he is. But Larry Fitzgerald, you can't beat him. He's an oldie but goodie. You know exactly what he's going to do because he did it last year. And, you just got to hope he doesn't retire at the end of this year. But for right now, he's a great wide receiver to have on your team.
Super high floor, for sure. Okay, number 8 is the Steelers.
Ooh.
So, pretty high rated on win now. Good on both, though. So, great depth at running back. He's got Gurley, Hyde, Giovanni Bernard, Duke Johnson. A lot of good PPR guys there. Andrew Luck is a top-rated quarterback, so he's going to be good for a while. But his wide receiver depth is a little bit average. He's got Jarvis Landry at the top. he's a nice, safe, high floor guy. But then after that, Crowder and Golden Tate are really all that he's got at wide receiver there.
Now, let me preface this by saying I'm in another league with Covert, who owns the Steelers, and it's funny because that last podcast that he did, he was calling everybody a used car salesman. That was like his thing. He's like the epitome of a used car salesman. I think he's one of those people who just points it out. Says it towards other people so they don't say it to him. I'm in another league with him. He traded Mariota for Rashad Jennings. Mariota was ranked 4th. Rashad Jennings was like 250 or something ridiculous. And he defends it to the death like it was a fair trade. He pulled one over on someone. So the used car salesman definitely got Duke Johnson. I like him. He's a PPR machine. You need someone to catch the ball. He's the guy. So I definitely like that pick.
All right, number 7 is my team, the Lions. If I was super biased, I would have just arbitrarily put myself number 1. Exactly. So as you guys can see, I'm not cooking the books or anything. So with this team, it ended up one of the top ranked overall futures. Obviously, that's going to benefit. I got a lot of young players here. Odell Beckham Jr., one of the top Dynasty assets. I have a lot of young wide receivers. Hopefully they can stick around for a bit. Unfortunately, my running backs are pretty average. I've been doing the best I could, making a bunch of trades, trying to boost that up. But the NFL draft really made him take a hit. I thought I could rely on Spencer Ware and Jeremy Hill, but obviously Hunt and Mixon were drafted, so those guys might be backups, unfortunately. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I can fill the flex with wide receivers or something else. I also have nothing behind Eifert because in the crazy wave of trades, I traded away Jack Doyle, so I've been trying to improve that position too.
You've been doing crazy trades. I mean, we started off this league with a huge trade. I traded for you. Had the number 1 overall, and we made that trade. I got David Johnson. You ended up trading up and getting Odell Beckham Jr. Because he was hanging around forever. So I mean, you definitely know how to trade.
I'm hoping none of them bite me in the ass because I got a few trader's remorse, but we'll see at the end of the season.
So Ben Watson, let's make a trade. I want to acquire Ben Watson, and let's work out a reasonable deal because Pitter's retired. I mean, I thought Pitter was going to be. I thought he was going to be the guy this year, but that one injury took him out, and Watson's going to be Flacco's starting tight end. That's a good tight end to have. So let's see if we can make it work. Maybe I can fill some of your needs, and you can give me Ben Watson. So I'd like to acquire him.
All right, you're pretty strong at running back, so I'll take any of those guys.
Any of those guys? Okay, I'll give you Wendell Smallwood. You got it. Deal. Done deal.
Okay, number 6 is the Jaguars. Another really strong future team, but he's pretty good for win now as well. I mean, you just look at the notable players on the side. Really good wide receivers there. Cooper, Watson, Bryant. He's also got Larry Fitzgerald. Will help a lot this year. Solid tight ends too. Henry and Eric Ebron. But he's got some poor running back depth. At the top, he's got Ty Montgomery, who's solid for him, and then Matt Forte will be good this year, but behind that, not a whole lot.
I love the. You didn't switch that to Ty Montgomery. Still says Indianapolis, but I love the pick.
Sorry.
That's fine. But Montgomery's a hybrid player. Wide receiver, running back, you get double the points. I mean, he can literally line up. He proved last year he can line up at either one of those positions. So anybody who can be on the field more is that's clearly a positive. So who knows what the running back situation is over there? But if he is the starting running back, or even if he's half running back, half receiver, I still think he's going to get some decent points up there. So I like that pick.
Into the top 5 now. The Bengals. So both pretty solid win now and future. Breaking into the top 5 for win now. Even though the Cowboys have the most startable tight ends, Bengals have the best tight ends. If you look at it, Kelsey, Jordan Reed, Delaney Walker, really, really solid there. He's got great starting running backs as well. Jordan Howard, Jay Ajayi, Abdullah, a couple other guys that are going to be able to fill in his flex spots as well. He's got poor quarterback depth. He does have Stafford as a starter, but then doesn't really have a solid tight quarterback behind him. We're really getting nitpicky here once we get into the top 5. So
everybody's pretty much good by this point. Yeah. All the offenses from 5 on are fantastic. So
right. And then with wide receivers, his top guys are a little bit on the older side, Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker. So as far as future, not as good of depth, but again, we're nitpicking here. Pretty solid team overall.
Yeah, Scott's got James White. I really like him. He is, he's another PPR machine. And in this league where you get a full point for PPR for running backs, that's a great guy to have. New England's a fantastic offense. You want to have someone who catches the ball. You can't get one of the receivers, you get one of the running backs. So he's going to catch the ball plenty. So I think that's a really good pickup.
And he had didn't he have double-digit catches in the Super Bowl, and he had 100 yards and 3 touchdowns? So, that's the last game we have to go off of, and obviously he's a big piece of their offense.
Yeah, that was definitely a high note.
All right, number 4 is the Falcons. So, as you can see, both are pretty high, win now and future. Probably has the best pair of wide receivers, particularly for 2017. Antonio Brown, Julio Jones.
Antonio and Julio
is really good.
That's competition.
Yeah. I know in most redraft, those guys are going top 4.
As well as they should. They're both elite wide receivers.
Absolutely, and they the reason that they add to win now and future, they probably have a good, solid 3 years of still being elite.
Well, Julio Jones is he's Mr. Glass, so he can break a hip rolling out of bed too. So that's the only question on him.
Right. Just overall, doesn't really have any weaknesses for 2017. Great wide receivers and running backs for this year, certainly. Murray, he bet his whole budget on Marshawn Lynch. That's going to help him this year, certainly.
I still can't believe that in this big of a league that 2 teams bet their entire budget on Marshawn Lynch. Who's a giant question mark, by the way. Tommy did it. The Titans owner did it too. That's crazy to me. Crazy to me. I'd never do that.
I'm a Raiders fan, and I'm optimistic, but I don't see him breaking 1,000 yards. I think he'll get an okay amount of touchdowns. They'd be really smart to pace him, not give him too many carries. They're going to need him in the playoffs, hopefully. So we'll see.
Well, it's one of those things. He's 2 years retired, so it's like he's not. You're thinking of Marshawn Lynch from Seattle. He's not Marshawn Lynch from Seattle anymore. He's someone else. Whether he's good or whether he's bad. In this giant league, in this league where you have to fill this giant roster, injuries are bound to happen.
Right.
And when you don't have money to pick someone up off the free agent wire, get the number 2 guy and fill those positions, I mean, that's going to leave a giant gaping hole. And I personally, I mean, I think I bet like $200 and that's a lot of money. I'm going to need the rest for the season, but
Yeah, I mean, we could go on for this for hours, but I do see the argument that the rosters are so large that anyone that's on the number 2 or number 3 on the depth chart is probably already on someone's roster. But definitely some defensive players. There's certainly some good ones out there that are going to break out later in the year. So it might put him in a pinch, but we'll see what happens with that. One of his only weaknesses that I could really find here is obviously some of his running backs are old, but Drew Brees is really his only quarterback. So 2 years down the line, he might not have somebody. Hopefully he plans ahead for that. But again, very small weaknesses here. Really, really good overall team.
And Eric Decker. And by the way, that picture is fantastic. And it's gold. And that was just, I mean, it literally, you could see it. You could see their joy draining from their faces on live TV. Everybody was watching it because it was the Super Bowl. One of the greatest comebacks I've ever seen in the Super Bowl. Not even close. And that was just something to see. But I like Decker. I mean, you know what he's going to do. He's that kind of guy. He's been around long enough. And I think he's Mariota's new red zone, favorite red zone target. So I think that's a great player to have. I think it's a good pickup.
All right, breaking into the top 3 now. Your brother, the Texans.
Boom.
Really good overall team. Number 1 future. And that is capped off by trading for Rob Gronkowski because his tight end situation was okay. But
I traded him Pitta, and Pitta got hurt, so he was in some rough shape. So getting Gronk was huge.
Absolutely.
That was legendary.
Yep. So that really rounded out his starting lineup. He had the highest rated overall future. He had a little bit of a lead. Obviously, the Titans had a huge lead for win now. Texans had an okay lead for future. He has the top-rated wide receiver group. There's a few other teams that have really good wide receivers, but he's got the best. Antonio Brown, T.Y. Hilton, Alshon Jeffrey, Stephon Diggs, Willie Snead. Julian Edelman is his number 6 wide receiver. I mean,
that's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think by far he's got the number 1 receiver group in the entire league. It's almost like unfair how good they are.
Right. Every single week, just fill all 6. I don't want to tell you how to run your team, but just fill all 6 positions in your flex with wide receivers, and I think you'll be fine. His one weakness is poor running backs, but I think Theo Riddick is going to be fine holding down that only 1 requirement for running backs, so I wouldn't really worry about that. Danny Woodhead's probably going to be okay too, so just overall, really good starting lineup, awesome wide receivers.
Yeah, you only gave him 2 stars for the points only translated to 2 stars for a running back, but I think his running backs core is a little underrated. I love Riddick. Woodhead's a good player. I think he still has Rob Kelly on his team, so I think his offense is fantastic. And when you're number 3 overall, it kind of proves that it's fantastic. But you got Stephon Diggs. I love Diggs. I actually drafted Diggs too. I think he's an absolute stud. I mean, last year it was like between week 8, between like 8 and 11. I think last year he had like something ridiculous, like 40 catches for like 350 yards or something like that. But then he got hurt and kind of limped his way through the rest of the season. But if he can stay healthy, he's a top 5 receiver. He's got a really high ceiling, a young receiver. I like him a lot. That's why I drafted him.
Okay, number 2 is your team, the Cardinals.
Bang bang.
I think we all know exactly why he's number 2 because of his first 2 picks, David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. Especially in our scoring system, these are the top 2 scoring guys pretty much. And overall, John's running back group is really good too. He's also got C.J. Anderson, Theo Reddick. Just really solid there. He traded for Michael Crabtree, which certainly helped out his wide receiver core. He's got Stephon Diggs as well. He's got Tom Brady leading that quarterback group. So just really solid overall. He's the number 2 win now, number 4 future. I know a lot of that has to do with those 2 running backs, but that's gonna give him a huge point advantage right off the bat with those 2 guys. His cons: below average future quarterback, just because obviously Brady's older and John thinks a little bit higher of Carson Wentz than the consensus, I think.
But, I disagree with that. I think Wentz is a lock. I think he's a great pick. You know what? As far as the young quarterback group went when we were doing this draft, it's not just a Philly fanboy in me. I think Wentz is the guy to have. I know Giants fans who love Wentz and say Wentz is the guy to have. So I 2 stars for future. We should bring that up to 3. In my mind, that's 3.
All right. And then another small nitpicky thing, behind Crabtree, Diggs, and Jordan Matthews, the wide receiver position is a little bit below average, but I think those running backs are certainly going to make up for that. You're going to throw those guys in the flex, so you'll be just fine there.
Yeah, I'm going to be. I love that picture of Buddy, by the way. It was one of those things when I was doing the draft. I had to, I went running back, but then certain value fell, like C.J. Anderson. I didn't want to pass him up. I knew the smart, the even keeled thing to do was to go wide receiver, but I couldn't pass up C.J. And then Hunter Henry was there. I drafted him. So it's like. I love my running back core. I think that's in this scoring system. I think David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell, who both catch a ton of passes, is a great thing to have. So the wide receivers kind of. I traded for Crabtree. I felt like I needed to get that guy just in case Diggs gets hurt or Jordan Matthews doesn't. I felt like I needed someone else. So I think that evened it out pretty good. But Theo Reddick is another one of the running backs in my core, in my posse, and I love Reddick, man. He's fantastic. He's got velvet gloves. You really can't beat him. 2015 he had 80 catches. If I told you that a receiver was going to have 80 catches, you would draft that receiver in a PPR league. Well, this is full point PPR for running backs. So. I took Theo Reddick over receivers because I knew Theo Reddick was going to be catching out of the backfield. Even if Amir Abdullah comes back or whatever the situation is over there, Theo Reddick's a lock for the third down guy catching passes. Last year he had 50. He caught 50 balls. And he was out 5 games, and he was hurt probably 7 of those games. So he still caught 50 balls. So it's kind of one of those things I did when I was drafting, where in place of a wide receiver, I picked a running back who's going to catch the ball, and that's Theo.
Yeah, and with obviously with all the flexes, and you only need to start one of each position, going best player available is definitely the smart choice on that. All right, drum roll, please. The number 1 is the Eagles. So, even though the stars look like they're not as high as some of these other guys before, when you really focus on the star power of his starting players, since we're going the starting roster and then the top 2 flex players, he is super strong at the top. Which overrides some of these lower stars here. So he's top 3 overall in win now and future. Just really strong all across the board. Great starting running backs, great wide receivers. Obviously, Elliott is pumping that up a lot, but behind him he's got LaShawn McCoy, Derrick Henry, T.Y. Hilton. Frank Gore's going to help him this year. Danny Woodhead's going to be pretty solid. For wide receiver, he's got A.J. Green, Brandon Cooks, Golden Tate. Behind those guys, his wide receivers aren't the greatest, but just looking at all those guys that I named, that already fills up his flex. So just when you're going head-to-head against other players, his guys were just the top for win now or future. And I mean, Phillip Rivers is going to be fine. That's kind of his only weak position there, but still okay for this year.
Now, all right, let me say first, that picture right there, I didn't approve that picture. I don't know if I like that at all.
I had to slip that one in.
You know what? But it's incorrect, and I'll tell you why. We do have titles. We have plenty of titles. We won shutout title games in 48, 49, and we won the championship in 1960.
Okay.
We actually in 1960 we were the only team. Actually, we were the only team to beat Vince Lombardi in the playoffs ever in the history. Vince Lombardi is one of the most legendary coaches ever. So you know. Hey, and by the way, little side note. Concrete actually played in the 1949 game and in the 1960 game. That just goes to show you how legendary he is. He's one of those guys who plays both ways, center and linebacker. I mean, you can't beat that. But hey, we got plenty of titles. Okay, just keep that in the back of your head. No Super Bowls, but plenty of titles.
Okay.
That's my little rant. Anyway, he's got Danny Woodhead. He's a PPR guy. You drafted him in like the 21st round, 22nd round. You can't beat that. Great location in Baltimore. I mean, some people are kind of saying West is going to be the guy, but if Woodhead's the guy, I think he's great value. Another guy I was thinking to put up here for the Dapper Dandies was Henry, because DeMarco Murray, he's had 2 complete seasons in his entire career. So I think Henry's a good guy to have, especially backing up Murray. But yeah, I like Woodhead. He's a good player. And let's just say that the Eagles are the exact opposite of the 32 ranked team, which is the Packers. Eagles have a good offense and no defense to speak of. Packers have a fantastic defense and no offense to speak of. So it's interesting. It goes from 32nd to number 1.
And another point I wanted to make too, I mentioned it when we talked about the 49ers. I didn't like that trade, trading Mixon and Emmanuel Sanders. Despite that, Eagles is still number 1 offense. Imagine if he still had Mixon and Emmanuel Sanders, the gap would be much larger. He might be number 2 for win now. Who knows?
Well, the Eagles actually did that horrible trade during the draft with the 49ers, where the 49ers took like 30 of his picks away. It was something ridiculous. It was like the most lopsided trade I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, he still had a decent offense. So number 1 ranked overall.
All right. So thanks, guys, for listening to the podcast. Do you have any closing thoughts, John?
Yeah. I mean, just remember this is just offense. So don't get your panties in a bunch if you have a good defense. I think I have a good defense, and that wasn't listed here. I could talk about that the whole next podcast if we have another one. But any hate mail, send it to Chris, not to me. He's the guy who worked out all numbers. So
I also welcome anyone to take on the defensive rankings. I'll be the first to admit that I'm a major rookie when it comes to IDP. I didn't want to embarrass myself. I didn't want to have too much wrong opinion there. And IDP numbers are a lot harder to find a good consensus nice quantitative data on. So I didn't want to. I knew that I could get the offensive numbers how I wanted them, but I didn't want to go there with IDP. But I definitely invite someone else to do the defensive rankings if you want to pick my brain how I did this. Absolutely, definitely hit me up on that.
Actually, I think maybe we could do a defensive ranking IDP, but maybe we'll just base it off of like projections for this league's website. Last year and the projections for next year or something. I think we could probably do that just based on this website's scoring system.
That's true. Yeah. All right. We'll put it in the back burner. I definitely wanted to get the offensive one in before training camp started because, as we saw, there's already injuries popping up. I didn't want to. As the days go on, the information gets obsolete more and more. So we'll see what happens with the next podcast.
And the commissioners are slacking. They haven't put down a podcast since the very early rounds of the draft. So someone had to pick up the slack. The commissioners got to get back on that. I know Jeremy moved like across the country. He's got this whole big thing going, but got to find a little time. Got to give R2G 2 a little bit of love.
Also, I want to say I can't wait to hear Scott and Vinny's overall power rankings September 1st once we make all the cuts. I hope they take the time to do that. I know they put a lot of time into this. I know from just doing this.
Yeah, they did a podcast. Yeah.
It takes a lot of work, so I hope you guys appreciated what we put together here, and I hope you were entertained and not bored too much by all the technical stuff. All right, and I think that's a wrap. I will